So again, welcome everybody to today's coverage on Midnight and its estimates system. We'll be covering how to create new estimates, how to copy your pre-existing estimates, how to attach estimated postage, creating multiple quantity estimates, and then converting your estimates to orders for use within our order system for scheduling and invoicing. We'll also take a quick look at some of the estimate reports that you send out to your customers and a brief description on how to adjust them to fit your needs. Before we get too far, I'm going to take a look at some of the drop-down menus within estimates. And by doing this, I'll just jump into one of my samples here just to show. You have some statuses where you can adjust your estimates records, for instance, the status of open or closed, the disposition of your respective estimates. And in addition to that, you have some other modifiers like the document types for attachments, leftover instructions, which are in the details tab. And you'll see I have a couple of others here like date done, which are calendar selectors. These are populated within our user-defined fields. I'll be going over where to update all these within our admin menu here. So to start, we can jump into our estimate/order list under our admin menu and go down the list. We have our disposition, which in an estimate relates to data as to why you may have lost an estimate. We have the document types, which refer to the attachments themselves. When you attach a file to an estimate, to an order, or even to a proof for a customer, there is a 20 megabyte limit. And this is where you can simply define the types in which you would identify your attachments as. Despite the current ones in the system, such as logo, proof, artwork, or correspondence, having a pretty self-explanatory name, there are no limitations to what you actually decide to upload and classify as. For instance, you could have a PDF uploaded as artwork, data file, or correspondence. To add new instances to this record and to pretty much any other record within the admin menu, all you have to do is add the new instance down below and click the Save button, making sure that the active checkbox is enabled. And if you ever find yourself needing to remove an instance, you can click the Delete button or edit the record and uncheck the box. So that way it's considered inactive and thus not visible on any of your dropdowns. Continuing on, the estimate status refers to the actual status of the estimate. All estimates in our system that are newly added are considered open, and all estimates that are converted to orders are considered won. The lost and closed are ones that you can modify or add in yourself. There is no logic associated with those. The leftover instructions refers to what to do with residuals. By default, we do have these 6 available, such as client pickup or UPS ship. And you can add information to these, making a variety of choices, or the use of allowing yourself to fill in some additional details in the adjacently located leftovers tab, where you give more details on what it is that you're doing. Despite being covered in our pricing training session, you do have the ability to adjust the taxes that show up on your customer records and your estimates and orders. You'll start by creating a tax code filled with information on the code itself, the percentage of tax, and if you're exporting your data into an outside software such as QuickBooks or Peachtree, the GLID, payable account, and inventory item, depending on what applies to your software. You can also identify these particular taxes as being related to postage or services for general sales tax calculations. After you've added all of your codes, you can add them to your tax jurisdictions, which are what you would consider to apply to your various instances of jobs, estimates, orders, or even customer records to apply as a default, so that the sum of all tax codes equals what the tax jurisdiction's value would be, in this case 8.25%. Additionally, the terms are available on estimates, orders, and able to be defaulted within a customer record. In here, again, if you have any integration with your accounting softwares like QuickBooks or Peachtree, defining your code and plugging in your days till due is mandatory to make sure that it syncs properly with your system. And the description is simply what would read out on an invoice or quote that you would need to send out. To go down a little further, in our admin menu, we have the global settings. In here, you can define a global tax jurisdiction, which would be applied to all new customers added to your system, unless you were to manually override it with another. You can also modify, under the Estimates and Orders tab, a few factors such as auto-update CRM info on copy, which makes it so when copying an estimate, anything within the CRM's customer entry for that customer would be updated, such as the address information or perhaps the default sales rep or CSR, as well as the only services associated with customer pricing or contract pricing checkboxes, which, if checked, control which services actually appear on the job. On the estimate. Under reports, you can list your default BCC, which is the logging email account for tracking for any emails that you send out of midnight. Customer records will be able to track estimates that are sent out via the estimate reports themselves. However, there will not be a record of the text that was included in the email or the actual document itself, just a record that an email of this particular report was sent to your particular customer. So by setting up on your internal Outlook server or Exchange server a specific BCC receiving account, you can track all of your emails that are outgoing from midnight to both make sure that what you expect to be sent is being sent and to help address problems if your clients report as being unable to receive emails from you. The default email signature can be populated to show just about anything but is not user specific. This is a global field. So we'd suggest populating this with simply your company's core address information, perhaps a logo, and some basic contact info such as your company's website, phone and fax, or primary email line. Lastly, under the system, there's a checkbox here to enable a save menu popping up if you've made any changes to a particular screen. By default, this field is checked, so anytime you make a change and attempt to leave without clicking save or save and close, you will be prompted with a request to save. This is especially important for estimates and orders, as there is quite a bit of information that goes into these records. So while you do have the ability to disable this, we would suggest leaving it enabled. Moving down the line in the admin module, there is the expandable postage list, which includes various fields such as category, mail class, mail geography, mail sort, post office, and postage affix. All of these above the postage rates fields will be controlled much more significantly within your actual orders module because they tie more directly to postage being applied. Under the postage estimate rates, you can control or modify the costs of the rates that you would assign to your job's estimate before converting it. We keep this up to date with standard USPS postage rates, and any that become old or deactive will be updated in our system with a Z in front of their name to indicate that they're still in the records listing for historical purposes, but for the conveniences of any drop-down records that load these, they'll always appear at the bottom of your list. Lastly, there are the user-defined fields. Within the estimates module, you can define up to 30 user-defined fields, which refer to anything that you require the ability to type in text for. By default, none are populated. We do have several here, such as our dates and text instances for, say, needed by or estimator name. To create a new one, all you have to do is edit a line, give it a unique label name, choose what kind of field it is, whether it's a text field, date, currency, integer or decimal, or time. Give it a group of characters that you're allowed to fit on that particular field, for instance, up to 10 characters. Select whether or not it is one that's supposed to copy between estimates to new estimates, or if it needs to be exportable from estimates into orders, which conversely creates a new user-defined field in its matching selector under the orders list of user-defined fields. And lastly, if you have a mask, this can control what can appear in a particular user-defined field. Masks can be a little bit tricky to set up. If you do wish to use a mask for something like, say, a yes/no field to simulate a list of drop-downs, you can actually do so by using the caret symbols, open and closed. And then you can place any of your choices separated by the pipe separator, or the key above your enter key if you're unfamiliar, to give yourself a list of available options. By default, the first will always appear as the choice and be saved if you don't modify this particular value. And only these choices can be added to this particular UDF's data because the mask limits what can actually be entered. To go one step further, you can search for your estimates by user-defined fields. So anything you create in here, such as a group of dates or a group of text values, can be utilized in the search. To go over the estimate search screen, under here you have the ability to open your extended search fields and search by a group of values such as expected quantity range, the estimate's due date, the estimate date, which is the estimate's entry date, where you can do a from/to grouping range rather than the filter's default single date range, as well as your user-defined fields, which you're allowed to select based on whether or not they exist. and potential values that you have within them. The search screen itself, estimates, projects, customers, estimate date, sales rep, CSR, expected quantity, status, and due date, will by default always sort by estimate number in descending order. If you click to sort or resort one of your columns, by clicking it once, you apply a descending, and a second time will apply ascending order alphabetically or by date range. And to reset this back to any default view, you can simply click Reset Filters to get rid of that. And to go one step further, if you're doing a search for anything specific, such as a specific character or word, if you type in any letters, you'll do a search for containers or anything containing. And you can adjust the search parameters by clicking the filter pipe icon and changing what the criteria is for that search. When you apply a search filter, a Reset Filters to Clear option button will appear. And by clicking this, you remove all options within the estimate search screen. And if you ever need to re-access an estimate that you recently visited, tailored to your user account will be a populated recently visited list, which will update and carry across your various PCs to always allow you to access the most 10 recent estimates that you've accessed. To create a new estimate, all you have to do is click the green New Estimate button. And from here, all that's required for an estimate to actually be committed and saved to our system is to add a customer. From here, the sales rep, CSR, terms, taxable status, and default contact, if one is selected, will appear by default after selecting the customer. The attached contract pricing button will appear if there is a contract instance for this particular customer record. If there are none, then it simply won't appear. And from here, you can fill out any of your required information to prepare a full estimate. I'll start by just creating a simple estimate here by plugging in a few basic values. A project name, the due date, and just a quantity to go over some basics. Some key information about the due date here is that for any scheduling that you have set up in orders, when converting this estimate to an order, the due date will carry through and prepare your dynamic job board by filling up scheduled services with a task start date to be however many days your service is set to appear before the due date of the particular job. I can add my services as I would expect by simply selecting them from their respective departments. Anything between the Details tab and the Postage tab are departments that you can define under the Admin Service Types list. And then the services you can subsequently add to each respective department. In this case, I could simply start by selecting a service And the price that's listed here will be either be the default price that's associated from the services list, the customer's specific pricing that you've established within this particular customer record, or the overriding contract pricing for a contract that you may select via the contract pricing add-in. I'll start by just picking a few services just to get some prices on here. Now, if we get to utilizing our print estimation system, when we pull up the print estimator, we'll have the ability to select not only the core press information, but additional services and inventory to tie to the particular service. For starters, any of your additional services will appear under their respective tabs or departments after you've saved and committed the print estimate. So in this case, my microcutting and fold service will appear as such. I also have my in-house 100-pound house gloss cover 11 by 17 sheet being used. We won't be able to see it quite yet, but if we convert this job to an order, this particular stock will be added with the quantity of the parent sheets as the quantity required to complete the job. By default, we'll see the price for the entirety of the print estimate listed in the service line item cost for the extended price, and if it's your only item, the extended price total. The additional services, in my case here, microcutting and folding, appear with the aforementioned print product name, and then the service name itself with their expected pricing. If we wish to adjust the pricing of any of our services, we can overwrite them as we go. As well as the text that's associated with them. For your print calculator services, you don't quite have that full freedom. If you try to adjust anything, such as the name of that particular service, you'll receive this warning, where the priority and the prices are the only things that you can edit. If you need to change any of this information, you can re-click the launch button to bring the calculator back up, make any adjustments within the calculator, and resave and resubmit it to close it and commit any of the changes that you need. In this case, it goes for deleting as well as modifying, which is why I just deleted my folding service there. So just pay heed to how your services are entered so you can properly update them. To go one step beyond updating our item costs, you can apply a discount or a markup to any of the services within your respective departments by typing a value in this discounts field and then clicking apply discount to apply it to all services within this respective module. If you do this and then you need to get your prices back to what they originally were, you will need to add a new instance of this particular service. And lastly, any discount that you apply here will apply to newly added services. So by resetting this to 0, you'll be able to get your prices to reset themselves accordingly. To get back into the Details tab, we do see a few things in here, such as the Leftovers Dropdown and Leftovers Ship To, which gives us a little bit of more information. And the UDFs, such as estimator name, date done, all values we can plug in. The accepted yes is here because of the mask. If we try to type in anything else, it simply won't allow us. We can use up and down to cycle through the choices here, so the up and down arrows on your keyboard work. Or you can simply begin typing in, and if you only have one value that would accommodate based on what you've typed, the rest of that text will be preloaded. Under the Postage tab, we can actually pick and choose and set up some of our postage information, such as our estimated postage, or some core locations which get plugged into the order after we export this. Anything under this dropdown is the postage estimate rate that's listed in the admin module. We can see the Z's for the inactives. And as we pick these, they'll sum up to give us a total postage amount required, which when converted to an estimate, converted to an order, will carry through and update our postage tab accordingly. This doesn't carry in to adjust the total and tax at the top. This is simply the services total and services tax, not the postage total. And finally, if you have a permit for your customer established within their customer record, a default that you have selected for them will appear here. And if you have multiple permits available, this drop-down list will populate based on what the customer record has available. In this case, my customer does not have one, but we can set them up within the customer record just the same, or add one in as we need. The attachments list is just that, an attachment where we have the ability to choose what we're adding to the estimate, giving our file a name of our choosing. And by clicking Choose File, we receive a prompt to be able to select the file and attach to the job. And within the Multiple Quantities tab, we have the ability to set up and adjust the estimate on a multi-quantity level. Our documentation by default will list everything broken out for pricing based on a single scenario. or this default of 5,000 by plugging in some other variables here. When we click Update Pricing, we'll receive numbers for everything, all possible combinations. If we need to adjust the cost of any of these items, or perhaps the details of them, we can click the Edit button to see what the numbers are without looking at our documentation. And we can adjust the data in these as well. Lastly, you have a job comments field for your multi-quantity estimates. And you also have under the Details tab a simple details or comments section. After saving your estimate to the system, or when just loading a report, you can see this information on your reports based on whatever their criteria is for which to display. Along with the subtotal plus tax matching the total in the header, and the addition of postage to give us a total after postage. Our estimate details, estimate price, estimate print, and estimate summary reports all consider scenarios where you have any services populated. In our estimate multi-quantity or estimate multi-quantity detail or multi-page reports break out our services differently based on the multi-quantity tab. Multi-page creates an instance for each estimate quantity as its own documentation. For instance, page 1 of our 5,000, page 2 for 10,000, and so on. If we're satisfied with any of the information in here, we can enter this one and either commit it to an order by clicking the Export to Order button, or by jumping into the Multiple Quantities tab and clicking Export within one of the different quantities. By clicking this, it marks the estimate as 1. It lets us know what order number we're given. And when you click OK, it brings you straight into the order, carrying in all the information from the estimate, as well as any inventory associated with the print estimation system. The final thing to check is that when you're within a job, you can open up the Details tab to see the estimate in which your order was created from. And if you'd like to create a new estimate based on an order, you can simply click this Estimate Export button to create one backwards. And if you're in the Estimate search screen, by default, you'll only ever see the open estimates. So if you need to see one that was converted to an order, you'll need to either search for all, one, or remove all of your search filters. There are some other intricacies with estimates that I'll be going over in a future section, such as how to send out proofs through the estimate. But to touch on that briefly, if you click the Quick Links tab, you do get access to our proof request, as well as the ability to quickly add customers within the estimate or contacts for the customer within the estimate. that's everything on Midnight's estimating system.